But if you're looking at this, I don't know, from a happy clapper standpoint, I guess, if this is what a bad run of form is for Harry Kane, I'll take it every single day of the week and twice on Sunday.
I mean, I'll take it over August.
Yeah, well,
for sure.
That's his only one bugaboo.
Who is it? Who's the forward at Chelsea? They just signed him.
Morata.
So I think he scored in like 10 games, and he had a spell for Juventus where he went 27 matches without a goal. Something outrageous. So, I mean, that's a great shout. It is the worst that we'll see from Harry Kane. Yeah. Amen.
So Kirby Kim.
And I'm not trying to. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say I'm not trying to hate on it. I mean, we love it. It's just I feel like it goes away. Like everything gets swept under the rug because he gets that winning goal. And for me, it does. I don't give a shit. 3 points either way. I'll take. You and I talk about it so many times, Sammy. I'll take the worst goal possible.
Oh yeah, no. But this is variance.
3 points.
I think he's got some. He has some extraordinary ratio. Like he shoots more than I think your average forward does, right? So that's why he has a lot of goals. But I just kind of view this as and I'm not a statistical expert, but I kind of view this as somewhat variance, right? I mean, along the way of scoring a shit ton of goals, you're going to miss some, and especially with the amount of shots that he actually takes on goal. But today, I mean, they were what he should have scored. I guess a hat trick today. I mean, ironically, he shouldn't have scored the goal that he scored. He should have scored 2 prior, right?
Yeah.
I mean for as good as saves as Hennessy made today, he really should have saved that goal.
Oh yeah, it went through his hands, and then you had 2 guys on the line that they just couldn't get behind it to head it out, and it was a weak header from him. But again, you're going to take that when he's missed a couple of really good chances. So
does it bother you guys that really was? You got to hand it to Palace. I mean, I think they've only lost like 3 games out of the last 10 plus, but. That was a bad team today, right? I mean, as Tim pointed out last week, they had like 10 injuries. Is that a cause for concern?
And they picked up another injury after our podcast, Kabai. So they had a full 11 that you could field with injuries.
Well, and didn't Tompkins go off with cramp?
Yeah, he did. Somebody did, yeah. Is it concern, or is this just kind of part of the drill?
Well, I think it's another one of the. It's like some of those early Wembley games when we played Palace at Wembley. I mean, we struggled with them, and any of those, the Bournemouth 1-0 and the Burnley and Swansea games. When a team parks the bus, we struggle, and they park the bus. We know if we score early, it's a different ball game because they've got to attack us, and that opens up the space. There wasn't a lot of space in the final third, and you could see it. We're jinking the ball around, trying to get the crosses in, and nothing was happening. Look at all the corners that very rarely met one of our heads.
Oh my God, that last corner! There's like a poker phrase, like when you need like a 4-outer, you're like one time, and I screamed. I was like, Eriksson, just one good corner, and then bam.
I think there was one that went right across the box and past everyone and went out for a goal kick.
Yeah. There was
you could say it's a bad day at the office, but we got the result. And how
we
many
haven't
bad days at the
office,
have we? Right. How many bad days at the office have we had this season where it's not panned out for us? So you got to win ugly.
That's exactly right. I mean, you've said it so many times. I mean, that's the mark of a good team, right? I mean, some of these matches, that's just how you have to win. I mean, even City's had some wins that weren't pretty.
Right. And if you think about our last 2 league games, right, both won 1-0 by Kane. One was an ugly 1-0, and one was the most lopsided 1-0. But at the end of the day, the result was a 1-0 win with Kane scoring. So just shows you how different football can be.
The way I'm looking at it,
the
way I'm looking at it is we're playing to the level of our competition. Look at Juve, Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool, those matches. The performance we put out there is completely different than matches in the same period against Newport, Rochdale, now Crystal Palace. And that, a little concern is that we're going up against Huddersfield, Bournemouth, and Newcastle as our next games in the Premier League. So I hope this trend doesn't continue where we match the team that we're playing based on, if we're producing at the level that we know the squad is capable of.
Yeah, I think of those 3 games, if you think about the reverse fixtures, Bournemouth was the only one we kind of huffed and puffed a little bit. We absolutely ran Huddersfield off the pitch, and the Newcastle game, granted, I think we got a little good fortune when Shelby was sent off, but I don't think we struggled in that game really. So and Bournemouth is away, and you never know what'll happen at Bournemouth. I know we'll get to that next week, but
Yeah. So Kirby Kim at Pantherfist, great Twitter by the way, asks, true or false, Simon, Sun fans are incapable of objectively reviewing Lamela, and I think he means to say viewing Lamela, and vice versa. What do you think about that?
Well, I think we kind of touched on that earlier, and I think Lamela had an off day. He was athletic enough running around, but I don't think he was probing enough. Yet Sun came on, and the ball seemed to be sticking at his feet, which we've seen it tends to not do that at times. But he really upped the tempo of the game, and you honestly thought that you might get something out of the game. At 88 minutes, I didn't think we were getting anything out of the game, but you could not discredit his lack of motivation in wanting to get out and prove a point that he should have started. And I think, I think at Wembley next week, he'll be starting against Huddersfield, and I think Lamela will probably be starting against Rochdale.
Sam,
so I'll answer the question. Yeah. I'll answer the question. True. Right? You're asking true or false. Can the supporters of those players objectively view the other? And I guess I'll say that they can't be objective because, Kenny, you love Lamela and you're always wanting him to start, but he's in direct competition with Son. So I think any little thing, when Lamela's fit, if Son does something bad, I think you're going to jump on that and seize it because you're like, well, if Lamela was out there, it would have been different.
I do that. And I think that's human nature. You want your guy to start, the guy that you love and the guy that you want to see on the pitch, and because that moment of class. The thing is, these two players are so different in the way that they attack the game, and they offer completely different ways of setting up goals for other players, and Son obviously has a much better record of actually popping a goal in when it's needed. I trust Pochettino. So if Lamela is starting over Son, I trust the gaffer explicitly when it comes to that decision. If Son starts next week and Lamela rides the bench for the next 12 games and rides the season out riding the pine, I trust Pochettino, and I think I think this summer for Lamela is going to be very telling. He has yet to renew a contract. He'll have 1 year remaining on his current deal. And if he doesn't renew, I wouldn't be shocked if Pochettino decides to maybe offload him and look elsewhere, maybe at a Sessegnon to come in and supplant that spot on the roster. For as much as I would hate for that to happen, I would totally understand it. And I explicitly, it just tells you, at least from my fandom standpoint, and I know that there's Poch out and Enoch out and Levy out and all these people that just absolutely drive me absolutely insane. I trust Pochettino so explicitly that if we sold Harry Kane tomorrow and made a ton of money on him, I would trust that Pochettino's doing the right thing for the club.
Look, I mean, we talk a lot about having depth and players pushing players, and Poch is unabashed about, hey, if I think you're practicing well or you're showing the best form either in matches or in practice, I'm going to play you. And to be fair, how many games has it been since Son has scored? And Lamela hasn't played bad. He's been somewhat impactful in games. So I don't necessarily fault him starting today. And I didn't really think he was that bad. He was no worse than anybody else in the pitch today. I mean,
Sam, tell me if I'm wrong. And I look at these games very objectively, I think, because I do follow Lamela when he's on the pitch, and I watch things very intently. For the last, and it's not recent, for the last 3 years, I swear to God, Eriksen does not want to pass the ball to Lamela unless he is the absolute last option to give that kid the ball. Am I the only person that sees that?
I haven't watched it enough to be.
That answers the original question, doesn't it, Tim?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Eriksen's a Sun fan. That's what we're saying. People, I mean, look at that. I mean, just for the rest of this season, when they're both on the pitch together. And listen, Lucas Moura now offers speed up a wing and a lot of ball control in the middle of the pitch when he does cut in. That's going to challenge both of those players for that position.
Well, and I think that I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I thought Son was very good when he came in, or at least he was effective. He made a difference. He was a point of focus for us. But I also think that we keep teams on their toes when we have a Lucas Moura and a Son in there. At least that was my big takeaway. I was like, ooh, I kind of fancy those two in the lineup together.
Yeah, it bodes it really it talks to typical Spurs fans, correct? In that we have cried and bitched and moaned for years since I've been a fan of this club. We need more depth. We need more depth. We need more depth. And now we have all this depth, and now we're going to bitch and moan about who's actually playing on match day. I mean, it's just, I guess, the nature of the beast. I wonder if there's a City podcast out there that's, I think Jesus ought to be starting. Screw Kun Aguero. I mean, really? You have that depth. Enjoy the depth. Enjoy what's happening with this football club. There are people out there just bemoaning everything, and we could win cups tomorrow, win the Champions League this year, and there's people that are still going to be pissed off about what it is we're doing. It drives me insane. I love reading it. It's absolute free entertainment, Twitter. Oh, my God. Anyway, we need to move on. I know that we want to talk a little bit about the Toby contract situation. Timmy, I'm going to start with you on this one. Rumors of 150K versus 110K, and do we want to pay that much for a 29-year-old center back? I'm going to let you start the discussion on this one. Go ahead.
I mean, I think if 110 is what he was asking, that deal would already be done. So the 110 versus 150, I think it's got to be way more than 110 because I don't see us just haggling that much over an extra 10,000 per week. But then you get into the 150. Well, what does that make him our highest paid player? So at the age of turning 29 next week or next month, coming off of 2 really bad injuries these past 2 seasons, you're going to offer him that money. So then that means you got to offer Son that type of money. Eriksson, Kane, Hugo, Jan, even like Dembele. I mean, basically everybody, you need to up their contracts if you blow everything out and break the wage structure. So if you look at it in a vacuum, is Toby worth that? And is it worth paying him that to keep him from going to a rival? Yes, absolutely. But then when you consider the whole scheme of it, what it's going to do to the changing room, are people going to be upset now that they're not getting paid and he got paid? And they're going to say, well, I understand he's really good, but how often has he been on the pitch these last 2 seasons? I've been in there banging in the goals and being fit for every game, available for selection, and I'm not getting paid that. But he's going to be in the physio room and still just collecting his check. So
Timmy, take a step back. Take a step back. Like, go over. Let's talk about what's the state of his contract? It expires when?
3 years.
Well,
yeah.
So it expires. Okay, so it expires 2020, 2020. When's his contract?
I think it's 2021.
Okay, so we're talking about a player.
I will double check.
Okay, so that's the first question, and I believe there's an option involved here, and if we want to exercise the option, it's a 1-year option, right? And I believe that if we exercise the option, there's a £25 million release clause, which obviously somebody.
Okay, so here's on Transfer Market. It says contract until June 30th of 2019.
Okay,
club has a 1-year option.
So all right, but the 1-year option is really worth nothing at this point because somebody pays $25 million if we want to exercise that option. So all right. So let's talk about context for a second here. Sunday Times. The reason why everybody's in an uproar about this is because it's the Sunday Times. Matt, whatever his name is, not Matt Law because he's at the Telegraph, but I can't remember the other guy's name. He's not very friendly Spurs journo, but it's the Sunday Times, so you can't ignore it. You can't dismiss it. But how does that story come out? Who leaks that story?
It's got to be the agent.
Of course it does. Of course it's his agent. And the agent has leverage because who just signed for who?
Van Dijk.
Okay. For how much is he reported?
Was he 175?
It was ridiculous.
Who knows?
I'm talking about his weekly wages. I think.
Yeah, I mean, none of this stuff's really verified, but no question. Southampton, got their pound of flesh for the transfer fee, and I'm sure Van Dijk got his pound of flesh out of them from a wage perspective. And agents surely talk with each other. So then it begs the question: if you're Toby Alderweireld, I mean, what percentage of a Virgil van Dijk weekly wage would you want to have within the context of playing for Spurs? A pretty high percentage, right?
If you're chasing money, yeah.
So Paul O'Keefe, who we know and love, I mean, he's a really knowledgeable guy. He's got a lot of sources. Says that there was a deal on the table, but then when the Van Dijk deal hit, shit changed. And so I guess my question to the group here is, can you fault Toby?
No, it's his last
Absolutely
contract.
not.
It's